This is really a look. This this is a look. Okay. I don't know if I should be like here or if I should be like back here in the middle more. I'm sweating. Hi everyone. So long as everything pans out and I film and edit this in a timely manner, it should be June 21st. And you know what that means? Summer. The first day of summer. And so I'm here with my summer TBR and some recommendations. Honestly, there's so much that I want to read right now, and a number of books that I've already bought that have not yet arrived that I want to try to like squeeze in, but I can only read so many books. It's probably not going to happen. They were sort of early presents because you know what else June 21st is. Some of you already know. My birthday. So you always have to gift yourself things, I guess. And some of you do know that my birthday is at least in June, and I've been asked recently, so I will announce it in a way in a video. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to. But I do have an Amazon wish list that I will link in the description. Let me know, though, if there's like another site that kind of does the same thing where they will ship an item to the person whose wish list it is. Like I have a public wish list on Book Depository, but it isn't like linked to my address. It just is like, here's what's on my wish list. You don't have to do anything, but I have been asked before, so that's in the description. Not that I need any more books, but I don't want to take up too much time here, so my TBR, here we go. This is like... So I kind of have like different stacks going on here behind me. It's not necessarily supposed to look aesthetically pleasing there or like anywhere. I just like this angle. I've discovered this angle, and the lighting is like a lot better because I'm more directly in front of my bathroom, which is where the light comes from, and not in a corner. So these first two books that I'm going to start off with, I'm not going to go into too much detail of because I'm currently in the middle of them, and I will probably end up doing some sort of recent reads video besides the one that I've already filmed and have not edited yet. There are a few videos I filmed that I haven't edited, so I'm still in the middle of The Power of the Dog by Thomas Savage. I just feel like I got caught up. I'm caught up in other books, basically. There are a lot of other books right now that are interesting me a lot more, and so I've just sort of set this aside and haven't come back to it yet. I'm like 90-ish, 83 pages into it, and I've read 4 chapters. I do like it, and now that I think about it, it does feel good for summer, so I'm gonna try to finish it this season. Summer's 3 months. I think I can do it, even though I have like 20 books behind me, and I know I'm not going to get to 20 books. The other book that I am in the middle of is The Longest Journey by Ian Forster. This is the work of his that I'm on now, as I've been reading his work in chronological order of when he wrote them. Last year I read Where Angels Fear to Tread, and then this is his second book, so it took me a whole year to get to another Forster, but mostly I wanted to get to this as soon as possible once spring started to come, because I just feel like his next book, A Room with a View, is very summery. I was like really determined to start this in June, which I can still do because I'm already in the middle of The Longest Journey, but now I'm just like, summer is fine. It doesn't specifically have to be June, but I would like to finish... Sorry, I keep going back and forth between the two, but I do want to finish The Longest Journey in June and then start A Room with a View and read that this summer. The Longest Journey, which so far I'm enjoying, even though I'm only a couple chapters into it, I feel like I put this off for a bit because I've heard it's Forster's, like, it's the least favorite among people who have read all of his work, so that kind of discouraged me from picking it up immediately. I'm gonna just read the back because I feel like that's such a cop-out, but really, sometimes that is all I know, and I'd rather just get the information correct by reading you the back. So, Studying at Cambridge as an undergraduate, the sensitive and lonely Ricky Elliott quickly becomes immersed in philosophy and literature and overwhelmed by a passionate desire to write. But as the years pass and his stories are not successful, he resigns himself to conformity, resolving to marry the beautiful but shallow Agnes, abandoning his writing and becoming a schoolmaster at a second-rate public school. Soon the memory of his idyllic university life falls to nothing, as the young man finds himself trapped in a world of petty conformity, bitter disappointment, and agonizing self-doubt. Fun! A blend of harsh realism and powerful symbolism, The Longest Journey was Forster's favorite of his novels, which is very intriguing, and I hope I like it as much as he likes it, at least. Okay, well, that's probably not gonna happen, but I hope I at least like it, and even if it turns out to be my least favorite of his works, it still is, like, a good book and enjoyable. And it's, like, school setting so far, which I feel like I always like. Yeah. Insightful, intimate, and profound, it is also his most autobiographical. A deeply moving portrayal of a man kept from fulfilling his personal desires by a desperate need to do what he feels to be morally right. I feel like I relate to that. I can relate to that. So, yes, The Longest Journey, and then A Room with a View has to do with... I don't want to read the back because the back of Where Angels Fear to Tread actually gives way too much information, so I'm nervous that this will do the same. So, what I know is I think the main character's name is Lucy. Yes, Lucy Honeychurch. What a name. That's so cute. So, she's, like, I think in Italy, on a trip with her aunts or, like, some older family relation or, like, something like that, and they end up switching rooms, I think, with this other family, like a son and a father, because they wanted, like, a room with a view. And then I think that Lucy ends up sort of being courted in a way by the son. Something like that. That could be a little off, but something. Romance in Italy. That's what I know. Speaking of romance in Italy, although I don't know if that's necessarily the right term, romance. Death in Venice. Romance, death, you know, those are synonymous. I realized I was like, speaking of romance, and then I said a title that literally says death in it. Death in Venice by Thomas Mann. This has other stories in it. I think there are 7 stories, including Death in Venice. So I'm kind of thinking that I could read, like, a story a day and read this throughout a week. So Death in Venice in this is only 70 pages. I don't know if I'll necessarily go in order of how these are presented, or if I'll read Death in Venice first, because I mentioned in a previous video that I mostly just want to read Death in Venice. I mean, I will read the other stories, but I want to read Death in Venice because I also want to watch the film adaptation of it. Gustav von Aschenbach is a successful but aging writer who travels to Venice for a holiday. One day at dinner, Aschenbach notices an exceptionally beautiful young boy who is staying with his family in the same hotel. Soon his days begin to revolve around this boy, and he is too distracted to pay attention to the ominous rumors that have begun to circulate through the city. Yes. Did I mention that I'm starting off with classics? If you couldn't tell, that's kind of what this first stack is here. So speaking of adaptations, these next 2 are a couple of classics that have previous adaptations, but one has a new adaptation coming out. Let me just say the word adaptation like 5 times. But first we have The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton, which I don't really know that much about, so I'm not going to tell you what it's about. There is the film from the 90s that I plan on getting this Criterion sale, upcoming Barnes & Noble sale, and watching that after I read the book, which is much shorter than I thought it was going to be. I don't know why. I really thought this was going to be like a tome of like at least like 450 pages, but it's not even 400 pages. It also seems like Edith Wharton's works are being published in these like newer editions. The House of Mirth is available in this edition, in this kind of like same style and art design. And then coming out later this year is, if I see the title, I'll know. Oh, A Custom of the Country. I'm pretty sure. Just in the same way that this is sort of this coral, I guess? Like a dark coral color. The House of Mirth is like a periwinkle color, and then the Custom of the Country is like a gold color. I would like to get those two since they're like matching editions. This also says 100th anniversary edition. And I think this kind of has like a love triangle in it in a way. And then of course I have Persuasion, which I think, did the trailer drop? I know images have been released. I don't remember if the trailer actually dropped. I did not watch it. I don't want anything influencing the way that I read this or expectations. I have seen images from the new adaptation. I have mixed feelings. The costumes don't look great. Some of the colors look nice, but I don't know. I don't know. The costuming doesn't look very good, which I just have a lot of questions about. Honestly, I think if you see like mediocre costumes, you can kind of presume that the rest of the production is probably going to border on mediocre, unfortunately. But I think a lot of people have low expectations for it, at least in the sphere of classic readers who like adaptations that I kind of like, people I follow on Instagram and people I watch on YouTube. But we'll see. I know that there's also like a 90s adaptation and probably a lot more than that, because literally every Jane Austen novel has like at least 5. I'm probably at least 5. And Persuasion, I know this has to do with Anne Elliot, who is persuaded not to marry a man. It's a sort of reflection of how things turned out, and possibly contemplating how things could have been if they were together. And this is one that I've been dipping in and out of since it's poetry, but I feel like his style and his writing just works really well for summer, and that is The Complete Poems by John Keats. Oh my god. Speaking of adaptation, period pieces. Also, period piece video is coming in July, sometime in July. Earlier this year, my mom and I watched Bright Star. You want to talk about costumes? Bright Star, which is about John Keats, more so Fanny Braun, who they were a couple, and I immediately bought The Complete Poems by John Keats and a biography about him. It's kind of like a dual biography though, because it's also about F. Scott Fitzgerald, who was really influenced by John Keats. It's called Bright Star, Green Light, which I think is such a clever title. The Complete Poems by John Keats, he just has really he just uses a lot of mythological references, garden and nature, symbolism and diction that aligns with those areas. I am enjoying reading this every now and then. And then this is just a recommendation. I'm kind of mixing those along with my TBR. Of course, Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. I read this last year. I feel like summer is the best season for it, but really so much time is portrayed within the story that any season can work. You could probably even read it throughout a year and it would go along really well. If you're I'm very much a seasonal reader, so that's why I'm phrasing it like that. I just absolutely love this. I love Tess. I am now on board the Thomas Hardy train because I had previously read Far from the Madding Crowd and liked it, but wasn't a huge fan of his writing. And this, I get it. The nature, it's not as dry, so to speak, as certain scenes in Anna Karenina where Levin is going on about farming. It's not like that necessarily, but I do think you can sort of make that comparison of Tess doing these farm jobs and milking cows and doing these tasks on the farm and as work. I love Tess so much. So if you don't know what Tess is about, this has to do with Tess, of course, whose father finds out that they are descendants from nobility, noble knights of the area. So once Tess's father finds this out and is told their family name is actually D'Urberville, because it has sort of been transformed into D'Urberfield, there is a nearby family whose name is D'Urberville. He essentially forces Tess to go make an acquaintance with them, and that is the beginning of a long journey for Tess. If you've read Tess, how do you feel about Angel? I want to know. I have very mixed feelings on Angel. And then I meant to mention this one after Death in Venice, but I also have The Magician by Colm Tóibín. I actually have finally looked up how to say his name in general. This is historical fiction about Thomas Mann, the author of Death in Venice. And so I would like to get to this after reading some of Thomas Mann's work, but I'm also a little nervous because I don't know if it will go into specific details of other works by Mann. So Thomas Mann seems very interesting, and I'm hoping this doesn't stray too far from his real life. I'm hoping it's more in the style of just trying to depict certain events from sort of like his point of view, or from like a third person point of view where you're like observing their conversations. You know what I mean? Instead of being like more textbook nonfiction, it's just fictionalized conversations of being in the actual situation. You know what I mean? That's what I'm hoping is the bulk of the fictionalization of Thomas Mann's life. So these next three are all upcoming adaptations, and I'm going to go in order from what will be released the soonest to least soonest. So first I have Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, and I feel like a lot of people are familiar with this. When this came out, it kind of blew up, I feel like. I just saw it everywhere, but also, as you can see here, it was one of Reese's book club picks, so I feel like that also had a lot to do with it becoming a bestseller and being talked about a lot. I know that the trailer came out for this. All I know is there is a girl who is, okay, I say girl, but I don't really know how old she is, if she's like a teenager or if she's just like a young adult, like a new adult, but she's nicknamed the Marsh Girl, and I think she becomes a suspect in a murder case, and it takes place sort of in the swampy marshlands of the southern United States, North Carolina. And because it has that sort of like thriller mystery aspect to it, I don't want to read like the synopsis on the inside of the book or look up more information, so you can do that of your own accord if you want to. And then we have something that the teaser trailer has officially been released, Blonde by Joyce Carol Oates. How many times have I held this up in a video? Too many, probably, but I've actually started it. Look at that. I've actually started it, you guys. Starting last year, I was going through all of my nonfiction books about Marilyn Monroe that I was reading just to sort of cement the details of her life into my brain so that I could have fuller context of things that happen in Blonde. It is a fictionalized account of Marilyn Monroe's life, which I feel like is sort of similar to the way that I was talking about hoping The Magician is like. It's that sort of third-person narration where you're like dropped into the situation, but we don't actually have accounts of the exact dialogue and exact conversations that these figures were having. The film, I'm pretty sure, is set to release in September. Did it actually say a release date? I know it's doing the Venice Film Festival circuit, so then after that, Netflix. And lastly, with the upcoming adaptations, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is being turned into a series on Netflix, and I remember when this came out, it really made the rounds on BookTube, I feel like. Even people who weren't as into historical fiction were really enjoying it, so I'm really curious to, as someone who enjoys historical fiction, I'm curious how it compares to other historical fiction books that I've read, I guess. And I always think it's interesting when a specific book of a certain genre sort of surpasses the genre in popularity and becomes more of a mainstream title, especially prior to it even being picked up to be adapted and making news in that way, just solely as a book. And I've kind of forgotten what this is about exactly, but I do know that it includes a blind character, and you guys, one of our own booktubers, oh wait, I'm like so excited for her, Aria Mia, I don't want to mispronounce her last name, so I'm not going to say it. I'm sorry. I'll put it on the screen. Aria Mia used to make booktube videos, and I would watch them, and she would watch my videos, and we would comment back and forth on each other's things, and I remember her, like, tagging me in videos sometimes. She is playing Marie Lore, who is the character who is at least partially blind. I know Aria Mia is legally blind. She has like a guide dog named Ingrid, and when she got Ingrid and was training her, she would upload videos. I looked to see if she still had her videos up and I couldn't find them, but she like has done a TED Talk. Like, Aria Mia, she's going places, and it's Netflix apparently because she got the role, which is very cool. It was like an open casting. Last time I saw updates from her on Instagram, they were still filming. So, very cool. So this says, Marie-Laure Leblanc lives with her father in Paris near the Museum of Natural History where he works. When she is 12, the Nazis occupy Paris and father and daughter flee to the walled citadel of Saint-Malo, where Marie-Laure's reclusive great-uncle lives in a tall house by the sea. With them, they carry what might be the museum's most valuable and dangerous jewel. I did not know about this part. I just knew that it was like historical fiction in Paris during World War II. I kind of don't want to continue. I'm not going to continue reading. Excited about this though, and so happy for Aria Mia. That's really cool. I'll link her Instagram in the description. The next book that I have here is called Last Summer in the City. I've never seen anyone talk about this before, but I got this last fall or beginning of winter, kind of like November time, and it's by Gianfranco Calligarich. I'm sorry for the mispronunciation. And it's translated by Howard Curtis, and it has a foreword by Andre Aciman. And so it's very short. And it says Last Summer in the City. I feel like I should read this. I don't know. To me, it's giving me more so August vibes, end of summer. I forget what this is about, so I will read Summer in the City, so you have to read it in the summer. In a city smothering under the summer sun and an overdose of La Dolce Vita, Leo Gazzara spends his time in an alcoholic haze, bouncing between rundown hotels and the homes of his rich and well-educated friends, without whom he probably would starve. At 30, he's still drifting between jobs that mean nothing to him, between human relationships both ephemeral and frayed. Everyone he knows wants to graduate, get married, get rich, but not him. He has no ambitions whatsoever. I kind of relate to that. Rather than toil and spin, isn't it better to submit to the alienation of the eternal city, Rome, sometimes a cruel and indifferent mistress, sometimes sweet and sublime? And then this is italicized. There can be no half measures with her. Either she's the love of your life or you have to leave her. Then the next paragraph, not italicized, says, first discovered by Natalia Ginzburg, Last Summer in the City is a forgotten classic of Italian literature, a great novel of a stature similar to that of The Great Gatsby or The Catcher in the Rye. Gianfranco Calligarich's enduring masterpiece has drawn comparisons to such writers as Truman Capote, Ernest Hemingway, and Jonathan Franzen, and is here made available in English for the first time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got this pretty soon after it was first published. That's why I ended up getting it, but then I got it too late in the year for it to read it during the summer, so this summer we'll read it, and it's super short. I was also expecting it to be much bigger compared to the next book I have, which is sort of a regular size hardback. It's smaller. So this next hardback that I have, since it's the one I grabbed, Tangerine by Christine Mangan. Mangan? I think I mentioned this in a previous summer TBR, probably last year, and I didn't get to it. I hope it was last year, otherwise it's been 2 years, and I haven't read it yet. One of the best debuts of the year, echoes of Gillian Flynn and Patricia Highsmith in this tightly wound exotic story. And it has to do with a woman who is in Morocco, an old friend of hers that she hasn't seen in a while, but was her best friend and they kind of had a falling out, comes and visits her, or they end up sort of running into each other, and they rekindle their friendship, and then the woman, I'm pretty sure she goes missing? Wait, no, her husband, the husband of the main character, goes missing, and the main character is just questioning things. Sorry about the jumbled description there, but I didn't want to like reread the inside because I have read it before in a previous video. And then we have A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. I have been meaning to get to this book. This description I will read because it's so well written, and this is all I know about it anyway. But I've been meaning to get to it for a little bit now. So here we go. It sounds fantastic. Hot girl summer all the way, you know? Food critic Dorothy Daniels loves what she does. Discerning, meticulous, and very, very smart. Dorothy's clear mastery of the culinary arts makes it likely that she could, on any given night, whip up a more inspired dish than any one of the chefs she writes about. Dorothy loves sex as much as she loves food, and while she has struggled to find a long-term partner that can keep up with her, she makes the best of her single life, frequently traveling from Manhattan to Italy for a taste of both. Hey, lots of Italian books happening. But there is something within Dorothy that's different from everyone else, and having suppressed it long enough, she starts to embrace what makes Dorothy uniquely, terrifyingly herself. Recounting her life from a seemingly idyllic farm-to-table childhood, the heights of her career, to the moment she plunges an ice pick into a man's neck on Fire Island, Dorothy Daniels shows us what happens when a woman finally embraces her superiority. A satire of early foodieism, a critique of how gender is defined, and a showcase of virtuoso storytelling, Chelsea G. Summers' A Certain Hunger introduces us to the food world's most charming psychopath and an exciting new voice in fiction. Who has been writing descriptions of books lately? Because so often lately, I've been reading descriptions and I'm like, oh my god, that's perfect. Sold. Buying the book. Give me the book. Thank you. It almost fell. Lastly, we have a stack that is part recommendations, part, well, like maybe I'll get to them. They're kind of like on my mind and I would like to read them, but I've already mentioned 20 other books, 15 other books, not as much. This makes the 20 though. I very much want to reread Atonement by Ian McEwan. This is a great summer book. I mean, it's kind of got some like heavy subject matter. I feel like there's something about historical fiction though that like is so summery, especially, I don't know, certain kinds of historical fiction. I don't know. It's either summer or fall for historical fiction. Do you agree? So Atonement by Ian McEwan, I feel like this is kind of hard to talk about because the things that I want, like the reason why I want to reread this is because of certain things that I've kind of completely forgotten about, but these elements like stand out in my mind. As well as I did not fully get this the first time I read it. I mean, I've only read it the one time, but I read this in high school, and it wasn't until I watched the adaptation from 2007, I'm pretty sure, which is beautiful, also so good. I also think like maybe the film adaptation is very much like summer vibes. Ooh, actually, I feel like my hair kind of matches Atonement, the film. Do you see what I mean? I love like the haziness. I love the haziness of Atonement. The cinematography is beautiful. And anyway, what was I even saying? Oh, it wasn't until I watched the film adaptation that I like fully understood what happened. And so I would like to actually get that from the book this time and just explore what happens because I feel like it's a lot. And I still have like some notes and like small, just really small annotations in here, like some pages marked. On a summer day in 1935, 13-year-old Brian Italis witnesses the flirtation between her older sister, Cecilia. This always gets me. I could never remember if it's Celia or Cecilia. It's Cecilia. And Robbie Turner, the son of a servant. And wow, that actually like really tells you kind of things that happen. This is like very explicitly what happens in a way. That's a bit too much. Bryony is such a frustrating character, so that'll be interesting to revisit. I don't want to say a lot about this, but if you haven't picked it up, you should. Okay, so speaking of historical fiction, kind of all of these, okay, the next few are historical fiction. The Secret Keeper by Kate Morton. How can I say that Kate Morton is one of my favorite authors, yet she has like 6 books out now, and I've only read 3. my bookmark is actually still in this. I'm so dumb. Page 105, chapter 9. I got more than 100 pages into this, and I just, like, wasn't feeling it. You know why? It's because I had just finished reading East of Eden by John Steinbeck, and I had my first ever book hangover. I just could not East of Eden on my mind while trying to read The Secret Keeper. So I'm definitely going to start it over. I should have just, like, taken the bookmark out long ago. During a picnic at her family's farm in the English countryside, 16-year-old Laurel Nicholson witnesses a shocking crime, a crime that challenges everything she knows about her adored mother, Dorothy. Now, 50 years later, Laurel and her sisters are meeting at the farm to celebrate Dorothy's 90th birthday. Realizing that this is her last chance to discover the truth about that long-ago day, Laurel searches for answers that can only be found in Dorothy's past. Clue by clue. Oh my god, this sounds so good. I love this kind of setup. It's like all historical fiction, I swear, but I love it when a character in the present is learning about the past and is, like, trying to find out about the past. Like, a lot of people actually use this. A lot of people actually describe this as, like, the Evelyn Hugo setup. Like, after The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo first came out, I kept hearing people, and it, like, blew up immediately. I kept hearing people refer to other, like, in previous historical fiction books and new historical, like, just historical fiction books all over with that sort of setup where character in present is learning about the past, and you may have, like, this dual timeline situation. I kept hearing people refer to that as, like, something from Evelyn Hugo, and I was like, but this is a typical historical fiction narration setup. Why are we, like, attributing it to Evelyn Hugo specifically? I just thought it was so strange. Anyway, clue by clue, she traces the secret history of three strangers from vastly different worlds thrown together in war-torn London: Dorothy, Vivian, and Jimmy, whose lives are forever after entwined. A gripping story of deception and passion, The Secret Keeper will keep you enthralled to the last page. And really, I recommend, obviously this is something that I would like to pick up this summer if I can get to it. Kate Morton's books are pretty long, usually around, like, 500 pages or so, but her stories are so gripping, and I love her writing. I love the mystery that is usually, like, entwined within the plot lines and the characters. Her books really are, like, character studies, in my opinion, because you're getting to know the characters so much that you're focused on that. At least the way that I read her novels, the three that I've read, I'm so engrossed in what's happening with the characters and the ways that what the characters are feeling and what they're going through, that whatever that mystery is that is intertwined in the overall story, that comes second. Like, I don't ever find myself trying to predict what is going to happen, what is going to be, like, the twist, if you could call it, like, a twist. Like, what is going to be revealed, in this case, like, the secret that is being kept, and how the crime connects to the past. Or I guess technically this is probably going to have, like, a three timelines, because you're going to have the shocking crime that Laurel witnesses, then you're going to have the present at Dorothy's 90th birthday, and then you're going to have Dorothy in the past in her life. But I also recommend, by the way, like, any Kate Morton novel, really. I think they're great for really any time of year. This one just has much more, like, summery vibes. It's probably the light pink color compared to, like, The House at Riverton, or The Forgotten Garden has, like, autumnal color scheme going for it. I feel like The Distant Hours is probably the only, like, wintry, like, late fall book. So in terms of other Kate Morton novels that I've read that I recommend for summer, I would say The House at Riverton and my favorite, The Forgotten Garden, though they were both tied as, like, my favorite books for a really long time, until I realized that The Bell Jar is my favorite book, which is also a good summer recommendation, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, because of course it has to do with the summer internship, based on, like, the summer internship that Sylvia Plath took at Mademoiselle magazine, that Esther takes also has in the summer at a fake magazine in the fictionalized version of the story. And then I'm also just feeling something kind of like historical mystery, even though I feel like I can get that from other books that I've already mentioned. I would like to pick up another Sarah Waters like relatively soon. I was kind of thinking The Little Stranger because this is just a plot line that I'm gravitating towards the most, but I also thought about just starting at the beginning with Tipping the Velvet. I've previously read Fingersmith a couple summers ago, and it's one of my favorite books. Also recommend that, but these are the ones that are kind of like more immediately on my TBR. If you've read Sarah Waters, I'd love to know which one you recommend first, even though I feel like I'm probably going to go with A Little Stranger just because that's the mood, that's the story that I am more interested in right now. And this could also be something that I pick up like in the late summer, early fall, also sort of fall time if I don't get to it this summer, like peak summer. And finally, lastly, I have Wicked Like a Wildfire by Lana Popovic. I could be mispronouncing that because the C has like an accent mark on it. So I recently purchased, but it has not yet arrived, the sequel to this. It's just a duology, and this is just giving me like Magic Garden vibes, and that is just, those are the vibes I'm going for because of my new hair. Because see, I have like fairy earrings. It's just garden fairy, garden goddess those are the vibes. Those are the vibes lately, even though my room does not really showcase that. My body and mind, that's enough. And I need that in books, I feel like, right now. So I know that this has to do with like magic and like very specific magic. Iris sees flowers as fractals and turns her kaleidoscopic visions into glasswork. Her twin sister Melina interprets moods as music, and their cold, distant mother Jasmina bakes scenery into decadent treats at her confectionery in Old Town Cattaro, Montenegro. Already the description into it. The wording there, oh my gosh. And I mean, who comes up with those sort of powers? And this also kind of has to do with like a secret that is unearthed and the past that has to be brought to light kind of situation. So especially because I will have the sequel, it'll be a nice duology to completely read this summer if I get to it. Okay. That was so much longer than I thought it was going to be, but that went well. And I can already tell that I'm probably going to get this up on the 22nd. It is what it is. I'd rather have a good video than try to rush it and not have a good video. So, yeah, I hope everyone has a great summer. What are your summer recommendations? I also, this was so much, and I wanted to add more. Oh, wait, I do have one more. I think I mentioned... Sorry, I wrote it down because I don't have them yet. I also ordered The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I read A Little Princess earlier this year, and I just feel like The Secret Garden, obviously, I have to read it in the summer. I have to get to it. And one of the adaptations, I don't know, I'll put the cover up. I have it. But there's an adaptation that I have that I loved growing up. And I still have my DVD of it. And so after I read A Little Princess, I was like, oh my god, I want to rewatch The Secret Garden. But I've never actually read The Secret Garden before. So I got a copy. I got the Mina Lima, cool interactive edition. Yeah. And then also Bunny by Mona Awad. That I ordered it also recently. This was all within the same book order. Bunny. It's on my mind. I want to read it. Look at Hot Girl Summer. even though I was literally just talking about fairy garden, right? The Secret Garden is going to be perfect for this aesthetic that I am now in, that is only being shown through me right now, and ignore the background. Okay. What are your summer recommendations? There were so many others that I wanted to mention. I was like, Bailey, control yourself. You don't have to mention every single book that is good for the summer. It doesn't need to happen. As well as this was supposed to be mostly a TBR, but also recommendations for the summer, since I'm going to be reading them this summer, or trying to read them this summer, and it seems very seasonal. I'm a seasonal mood reader. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone has a great summer. I think I already said that, but emphasis on the great summer. Why do I keep doing this? Okay. I'm leaving now, so I will see you in my next video. Yes, how do I usually end this? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.